Hey, so I had a really interesting conversation with my own therapist today, and she was telling me that she has a family situation in which there is a mother who, she's not using these terms, but she's saying there's a mother who scapegoats this young child and makes the other child a golden child. And she said it's so viscerally uncomfortable for her to be around because she's never experienced this before on the ground. Like, she has clients that she's heard say it, but she's never seen this in action. And I was that scapegoated kid. And she says that she struggles with knowing what to do in the presence of that situation. And I know as an abused child, saying something to the parent or even to the child about the parent could make it much worse. But it is excruciating to be a person who can see what's going on and say nothing. It's kind of traumatizing, right? I actually had this guy that was our mailman. He used to come around our house and kind of linger, and I was told that that was because he had a crush. And really later in life, he saw me at my friend's wedding and he said, I used to come around to check on you because I knew what was going on with you and I just wanted to see how you were. He completely saw me and came to see me when I didn't think anybody did. And when he would do that, I would be told like he's a creep and he only had a crush on my mom. So I remember multiple times of being just the center of a pit. Like, I would be introduced. I remember one time being introduced to one of my dad's coworkers' wives. My mom slapped my shoulder and goes, "This is the brat." And the woman was like so kind of turned off by her. And this is what every abused child feels, right? Because the reality is that's even more of a way to isolate a child. So nobody wanted to interface with my mother because it was obviously weird. So they didn't want to interface with me because obviously I'm, inside of my mother's sphere. So abused children are often even more isolated because their abuse will happen right in public and nobody knows what to say. And in her situation, she was talking about like if emotional abuse was physical abuse, I would have been mandated to report what I see. And that's the strange thing about these dynamics is that everybody either aligns with the abuser or is so scared of the abuse that they are just either thankful it's not them or they kind of want to stay away from it. Like, you don't even want to go near that child that you know is being abused because you either pity them or you must assume that there's a good reason, or you don't want your kids to play with them because they're being abused and so they must be coming from a shitty life, right? Like, there is a lot of social implications that can be tricky when some abuse is going on and you feel helpless to do anything about it. Most people want to avoid it and stay away from it. They don't want their kids to play with that kid. They don't want, they don't even want to look at it. And that's one more way that abuse can isolate a person. So what I said to her was that I'll never forget this time that for some insane reason, I was 5 years old. I'll distinctly remember it, sitting and playing with my dog on the floor. My cousins were over, their friends were over, my mom was sitting on the couch, and they were I was sitting there quietly, happily playing with my new dog. And they were just saying what a brat I was, how spoiled I was, how stupid I was. It's like I literally, like Target. I'm just sitting there playing with my dog. I'm 5 years old and just hearing these bombardments of like how I am horrible for literally no reason. I'm not saying anything. And when she's asking me, like, she's obviously gaining perspective just by my experience, but she's saying like, what would somebody do in that situation? If anybody would have even gotten on the floor with me and said nothing, but simply got on the floor with me, because they were all either shooting darts at me or laughing uncomfortably. And that's what usually happens, right? It's like, oh, this can't, like, this is weird. If any of them would have stepped out of line from those, firing lines and cared enough to just sit on the floor with me and said even nothing to me, but just sat on the floor with me because they were all in chairs around them, I would have felt safer. So what I said to her is, because she's like, should I tell him? I see that his mom's doing this kind of, and she's not like asking me directly, but, and you can't, because even in abuse, I was telling her that the first time I was mandated to go to therapy after I was actually taken away from my parents. This is something that I have never shared publicly because it is still something I try to protect. But at one point I was taken away from my parents for 2 weeks and they had to go through parenting classes. And when I was put back in the home, I had to go to therapy. And the first day that I was in therapy, the woman said to me, and mind you, I'm 14, I'm like a perpetual badass right now. Like I'm a rebel, I don't give a shit what's going on. And she said, well, it sounds like your mother is actually the problem. It sounds like she has no boundaries. I never talked about my mother in therapy again with her. And it stuck. It really stuck what she said. But I still felt the need to protect the image that I knew that I was supposed to protect. I felt the need to protect my mother. I felt the need to protect the truth. I was blatantly told, your body is to please a man. A parent is our child is the extension of the parent. Don't ever share anything that goes on in this house. Whatever goes on behind the closed doors is with us, I was explicitly, overtly told these things. And when somebody reflected to me that like, hey, maybe you're not the problem, I saw them as the problem, right? So I just never talked about my mom again. I would talk about my boyfriends and doing drugs and things like that. But I still had this, when she validated that, I was confused. I didn't like it because I still felt the need to protect somebody who was abusing me. So it can be tricky when somebody's not ready to tell them reality, right? But what I said that I would do is if I said, if the mother was here and this kid's here sitting where you are and I'm here sitting where I am, I would just see the mother, look at the child, and I would get up and find a way to sit nearer to the child. That's it. Because indirectly, my body language would be saying, I'm saying nothing other than you're safe. Because I'm here. A little bit safer because I'm here right now. Because I'm in the room. And I know that if you're like a person who sees this, you're probably like, I can't say anything. It's not my right. This isn't like, this is crazy, but it's not my place. And then you might look at that child in pity. So when you come at them, there's this weird separation in and of itself because you're like seeing like, oh my God, I feel bad. That's why I'm coming to you. Instead of I see you in your strength and your innateness. You go like, oh, I see this weird thing too. I still don't see you because somehow this thing is skewing you. But to acknowledge, I see you here, simply by moving your physical position and standing nearer. And that's not always the case. I'll never forget that time I saw some lady flip out on her kid because he spilled milk in a Starbucks. And I seriously, the things that my body did in response to her reaction, I wanted to say something. I wanted to tell that kid, dude, this is not your fault. This is her reaction is over the top. Everybody in Starbucks just stared at this woman berating this 4-year-old child for spilling milk. She's screaming at him, screaming down at him in his face. And nobody says a word. And I was one of those people. I know if somebody would have said something to my mother, I would have gotten in more trouble. And that's the weird part, right? That's the fine line where you're like, oh no, what do I do here? If you're intelligent enough to know that you probably can't say something like that to an abuser because it will be worse for the kid later. There is something to say though for the nervous system that if all I said to her was, if somebody in that moment where I'm being berated and looked at and, just poked at and belittled for no reason, and they were uncomfortable, I could tell there was several people in the room uncomfortable that they were participating in this assault. If even one of them would have you could have stayed on that side, just sat on the floor, I would have felt like there was an olive branch to safety, but I had no one. So if you see things like that, I think as that child who was like, you know, I'm in this over here and I have this protector who's actually like not protecting, but like protecting me from you, when you might even be the one who should be protecting me from this person, but there's a wall here, right? And when you think like, oh my God, what's my place? What do I do? I would say on a nervous system level, if you love this child, find a way to move your physical body nearer to them, because oftentimes we will orient around the most dysfunctional person. So it'll be this person's being berated and her husband's standing behind her. Or like what I mean is like this child will be being berated, the mother's standing there berating the child, the father standing behind her. I would find a way to stand near the child simply. Not, you don't even have to say anything, but to just on a nervous system level know, I see you. And I see this, and I am here with you. That's really the only thing that you can usually do, depending on circumstances and age. But I would say use your physical body more than your words to indicate with your eyes, I am here. And then with your physical body, I will move closer when this person who is kind of damning you into the distance is in public humiliating you. I will move closer to you, and I will, if that you are to be humiliated, I will become humiliated also. I am willing to be with you. I am not scared of this person. And you do not have to say this person's abusing you, this person's horrible, just to simply show that authority figure that that child is dominated by and terrified of is not the ruler of the entire universe, like that child has come to believe, because everybody stands around and watches their tyrannical behavior and says nothing. When somebody would see me and say, which never really happened, I didn't know until I was an adult that guy was coming around to check on me, to say like, I physically, and ironically he was doing that, he was physically standing in my house. He was physically kind of invading space a little bit. He was staying longer than he should. He was just the guy who delivered newspapers. And he would stay and sit and just kind of look and talk and try to see, but it was twisted and like, oh, he's here for me, and you know, like whatever was going on there. But it was so shocking that he saw it, and I can see the crux of people being able to say nothing, right? It's not our place to say something we think. But ultimately, if I'm going to be in rooms like that, I'm going to be a person who's going to be willing to also stand as a target with my physical body. Not my words, not coming to a defense, because that doesn't usually work with, you know, cognitions and abused children yet. But with my physical body saying, I see you, I saw that, and I'm going to physically move closer to you to just be next to you. We don't even have to talk about it. If somebody would have got on the floor with me that day when I was playing with my dog and just even pet my dog, I would have felt like somebody saw the world that I was seeing. And I wouldn't have been so isolated. And that is the crux of every single abused child out there, especially when it looks good on the outside. So I hope this helps. I would use your physical body, not your words, because oftentimes if you tried to say that, it would come off with pity. And like I said, they would probably fall on deaf ears, because they would still feel obligated to protect the parent who's not willing to protect them. Show them with your nervous system that you are a safe person, because they don't believe anybody out there is safe. Because when everybody in here just watches this and it's all unsafe, why would the world can't see it? If everybody inside of their home is seeing it and saying nothing and doing nothing, nobody out in the world is ever going to see it, right? So they don't believe anyone's safe. And if I have anything to do with this planet, I'm going to be the safe one. So, and that's going to come with using my physical body, not I'm emotionally outpouring compassion and pity on you. It's going to be, I'm here with you. I see you. I saw that. And I'm willing to stand with you, even though we have to say nothing to say. Just, I see you. I'm here with you. That alone teaches something that somebody who's never been abused right now couldn't understand, and I can't even articulate. But I promise it would work. Okay. Bye. Have a great day.